Annyeonghaseyo, this is meowmurai. Let's continue our game of Despera Drops running on Nintendo Switch 2.
世界の果てまで逃げてみせる。
遅い。これでいいかな。
Let's see, distract them by yelling, scare them with firecrackers. Do you have any explosives? How about firecrackers?
爆竹を持ってませんか？あればそれで威嚇してください。
わかりました。やってみます。
Kamu took out something from his pocket and tossed it. Oh boy. For a split second, the agents whipped their heads around at Kamu, startled by the noise, but it didn't produce any more results. The thunder's noise didn't spook them too much.
ブラックメンの一人がこちらに向かってきます。さらに敵の援軍も近づいてくる気配が。
Okay.
僕もお付き合いします。
これで OK？
I don't want to say do you have explosives, but distract them by yelling is not gonna work, so.
爆弾はありますか？あまり大きな爆発だとハミエルさんたちも危険なのですが。
最後の手段として残しておいた爆弾があります。どうやらそれを使う時が来たようですね。
最後の手段ってかなり危険な爆弾なんですか？
まあ危険といえば危険ですが、主に強い光が出る目つぶしタイプでして、破壊力や殺傷力はほとんどありませんのでご心配なく。
Oh, if I would have known he had a flashbang, that would have been the first one I picked. Of course, Kamu thought of something. Of course, Kamu thought of something like that. After all, he wasn't the kind of person to harm others without reservations. I could trust him.
ハミエル君、サリー君、逃げてください。
Kamu shouted at the top of his lungs as he flung the bomb in his hand. Hamiel and Sally heard his call and sprinted away. Meanwhile, the agents froze, possibly bewildered by the sudden turn of events. Not a moment later, the camera footage shone with a fierce flash of white before ceasing to function altogether. The explosion must have damaged the tech.
神さん、大丈夫ですか？返事をしてください。
ミッション遂行です。通路に倒れているブラックメンたちを無力化した後、ハミエル君を追います。
I could finally breathe again after hearing Kamu's triumphant report.
はい。その先の大広間でアッシュさんが待ってるので合流してください。
ラジャー。
Immediately after I ended the call with Kamu, a call from Ram connected.
もしもし、ラミー君、今どこにいるの？
どこって倉庫っぽい部屋が3つ並んでるとこについてるけど、ジブってどこにいんの？扉が分厚くて中の様子がわかんないんだよね。
Oh, he's in the wrong place. Huh? He's already there? I didn't spot any shadows that reminded me of Rame on my screen. Maybe he'd ended up somewhere else.
監視カメラにラミー君が映ってないけど、広いお城だからもしかして別の場所にいるんじゃないかな。
なんだ、監視カメラの映像を見てるんだ。それじゃあわからないかもね。
Well, he had a rich family, so I guess he had access to materials, Kamu. So, you know, probably had a lot of free time. So you're watching the cameras, all right.
大丈夫。ちゃんと倉庫の前にいるから安心してよ。っていうか、どこにいるか本当にわかんないの？
You're below the camera, you're behind a pillar, we don't have time. Oh, I mean, well, yeah, I mean, we really don't have time. Why is he playing this little game? Like, who cares? Just open the damn door. You're behind a pillar?
柱の影でしょ。少しだけ服が見えてるよ。
なんだ、バレてたのか。それじゃあ、おとなしくジブを助けに行くよ。どの倉庫に閉じ込められたかわかる？
一番左。さっき中庭に黒服の男がいたから急いで。
了解。
Ram dashed over to the vault where Gib was imprisoned. He began picking the lock, and the door swung open in seconds. His skills were magnificent as ever. Gib poked his head out from the vault.
ジブを回収しに来たよ。
すまない。 助かった。それで私たちは大広間へ向かえばいいのだな。
はい、そこにアッシュさんたちがいますから合流してください。
わかった。
Ram and Gib broke into a run. Meanwhile, there was a problem in the Great Hall. It seemed that the moment Hamiel and Sally arrived, a lone agent appeared. With a gun in his hand, the agent was threatening the pair into walking over to the wall. What do I do? I was at a complete loss when I received a call from Ash.
アッシュさん、実は
何かトラブルが起こってるらしい。状況はわかるか？
はい、ハミエルさんとサリンが銃を持った黒服の男に捕まりそうになっていて、二人を助けてください。
だがここからじゃよく見えねえ。
黒服の男はアッシュさんのいる方に近づいてるので、飛び出すタイミングは私が伝えます。
わかった。頼む。
Ash stood at the ready behind the pillar, prepared to spring into action. Wait.
もう少し待ってください。
Holding up his gun, the agent inched closer to Ash's hiding place. He must have been shifting to a position where he had a better shot at Hamiel and Sally.
まだか。もういいだろう。
Oh,
とりあえず記録しておけ。これでいいか。
wait a little longer, I guess?
まだです。もう少し待ってください。
待つのは苦手なんだよ。
Now?
今です。
I could have swore I saw him grin as Ash ended the call and finally charged out from behind the pillar, lunging at the agent. The victor was decided instantaneously. One moment I saw Ash running out, the next the agent was collapsed on the ground. Hamiel and Sally rushed up to Ash. They seemed to be checking on each other, making sure they were all unharmed. Soon after their union, our last two comrades joined them in the Great Hall. Seeing that everyone found each other, I sighed with a smile. All that's left to do is lead them outside the castle. I just had to explain the secret passage inside the mantelpiece. They'd be able to escape safely through that route. Oh, which one do I call? Ash, Gib. Wait, why is Gib in red? Oh, they all have different colors. I was like, why is Gib so special?
これでいいか。
Let me see here. I don't really have a full bar with everyone. I have the least full bar with Hamiel, which I guess is not a surprise. And then the largest I have is Camu, strangely enough. Yeah, that's interesting. My bar is like halfway through. Is halfway full. Let's see, they gotta find the entrance, right? So I guess I should call Ram. I'll tell Ram about the secret passage. When I called Ram's number, he picked up at once.
姉ちゃん、どこにいんだよ。無事なんだよね。
ハミー君こそ無事でよかった。みんなとも合流できたみたいだね。
I'm probably gonna end up with like the absolute worst ending since I'm not favoring anybody.
こんなの大怪盗様には遊園地みたいなもんだからね。で、これから僕はどうすればいい？どこまで君を迎えに行けばいい？
その大広間のマントルピースの中に隠し通路があるの。そこから
隠し通路？うわ、そんなもんまであるのかよ。ほんと趣味の悪い城だな。
私はその隠し通路の先の安全なところにいるから。
え、マジで
？Well, it is our first playthrough, so and I'm not using a guide, right? We're trying to do this as fair as we can, with a couple of save scums, not too many. But yeah, usually it'll be the neutral ending. It's just like when I played their previous game, Our world has ended. I just ended up with like the most generic, neutral anime ending, and I really regret that. Which is why at some point in time we're gonna go back and play that game.
私は大丈夫だから、ラミー君は早く安全な場所まで逃げてね。
I hung up before Rom could question me any further. Now, I just had to escape myself and reunite with the others. Just then, my phone vibrated in my hand and the screen went dark. It had run out of battery. I couldn't contact my friends anymore, but I was relieved that I had at least managed to direct them to safety in time. I stood up and readied myself to make my own way, but then the door opened. My luck had run dry.
おい、いたぞ。確保しろ。逃がすんじゃない。
The men reached out to me. I braced myself, accepting that I had no way out of their grasp. Not a moment later,
来たよ。
the window shattered as Rom leapt into the room. Oh, jeez. Okay. That's a surprise. Shards of glass flew everywhere, sparking as they reflected the sunlight.
お前は。
Can he really take care of them?
やった。
Rom did a flip from the windowsill and landed on his toes. He fished something from his pocket and tossed it at the agents.
何を。
What, he has a flashbang too? What? He created a smoke screen. The smoke permeated the room, leaving zero visibility. Without a sound, Ram walked to my side.
まっすぐ走って。
Ram's voice was like an encouraging push to my back. I dashed forward and into the corridor. Oh, I wonder what would have happened if we picked Sally. Would she jump through the window too? Ram sprinted in front of me as a guide. I had so many questions for him, but there was no time for that as we kept running. We went downstairs, entered the garden, crossed over the fence, and just like that, we managed to leave the premises of the castle.
無事連れ出せたから、予定通りコンスタンツに向かってる。
Yeah, that was very unexpected. I would never have been able to predict that. Ram was communicating with everyone else through his earpiece as he drove the motorcycle. The call ended, and Ram let out a small exhale. His usual cheerfulness was absent from his profile.
みんなも無事脱出したって。ドイツまでこのまま行って合流するから。
No, we're going to Germany, huh?
あのさ。
We spoke at the same time, interrupting each other by accident. An awkward atmosphere took over, and I fell silent.
何？
Yeah, France was a lot of trouble for us. I could say thanks for saving me, or apologize for getting caught again, or question why he came for me. There were too many things I wanted to say. I didn't know which to choose, so I said nothing. Ron must have noticed my plight, because he tried to give me a small smile, but his eyes held no joy.
あのさ、ミカ。もうあんなことしないでよ。僕、あんなんで助かっても全然嬉しくないから。
ラミー君。
どこまで逃げりゃいいかわかんないって言いたい気持ちはわかるよ。僕だってそれは思う。でもさ、自分から諦めないでよ。欧州警察ってのが実際に助けてくれるかなんて全然わからないじゃん。
Yeah, that was my point.
それに中継なんかに出てさ、あれじゃ捕まえてくれって言ってるようなものだよ。やばい奴らに狙われてるって分かってるのに。姉ちゃんを狙ってる奴らに常識なんて通用しない。あいつら絶対まともじゃないよ。
Anger gave an edge to his voice as Ram tightened his grip on the handlebars. The ever-smiling Ram was livid.
それともミカは僕らが嫌い？犯罪者なんかといられないから離れたの？
そんなことないよ。みんなのことが大切だから。足手まといになりたくなくて。
That was why I wanted to be the one arrested, hoping that they'd get away and lead happy, fulfilling lives elsewhere in the world. But I brought the worst-case scenario. I was so frustrated about how it turned out that I couldn't finish my sentence.
だったら同じだね。
同じ？
僕たちだってミカのことを大切に思っている。急にいなくなったらパニクって必死になって探すくらいに大切なんだよ。
Well, she was listening to that conversation with Hamiel and Gib, and while she was semi-conscious, so I could see her why she was a little confused.
だから僕のことを考えてくれるならさ、そばにいてよ。
Plus, being the kind of person that she is, very overly concerned with everyone. To me, this sort of makes sense. What drove Rom to go this far for me? I didn't understand. After all, there was nothing I could do in return. But I felt reluctant about voicing that question. Left with unpleasant silence, the two of us continued towards Germany. Oh, look at this place. This place is nice. Germany, July 26, 2028, 1629, Wednesday. Konstanz Resort Hotel. What, a resort? We reconvened after traveling all the way to Konstanz, Germany. The others had a short discussion and chose this hotel as our hideout. The stunning hotel, apparently a resort, had a beautiful interior. However, as I entered our chic suite, I stood motionlessly in silence. Come on, I need to thank everyone for saving me. That was what I wanted to do, but for some reason the words wouldn't make it past my throat. I made my decision to turn myself into Europool. It was supposed to buy everyone time to escape, and I would give up on this futile running. But in the end, I'd been kidnapped and my comrades had to come rescue me. Hamiel turned on the TV to break the oppressive silence for us all. But the murmur of the mundane program was almost jarring, and the uncomfortable quiet only grew more prominent. Gib came to me with a notepad in hand.
ではいくつか確認しておきたいんだが、さらわれている間に何か分かったことはあるか？妙な連中のことだ。私も知っておきたい。
Gib asked question after question like an officer during an interrogation. I swallowed my nervousness and answered dutifully. Answered dutifully. I'm going crazy, I swear. I explained that I'd woken up locked in an unfamiliar room. A man who called himself Chancellor was there, none other than the murderer who framed me in Rome. All the members of the organization referred to a girl, Crystal, with the code name Hellinger. She had probably been confined there like I had been. At the moment, they claimed they would not kill me, but depending on my actions or the circumstances, Chancellor would not hesitate to take my life. And he had meant to kill my rescuers. I chose my words carefully, trying to be as objective as I could. The more I spoke, the more a certain truth became painfully clear. I didn't belong here.
だからもう
ハウススチュワードにチャイルドナースにハイリガーにチャンセラーか。住んでる城といい、随分と仰々しい連中だな。今が21世紀だって忘れてるんじゃないか？
Hamiel interrupted me with a laugh. In his eyes was a message. Don't finish that sentence.
というか、あんな城を所有した上で兵力まであるなんて、まるで中世の王様みたいじゃないか。
そういや、あの城かなり変だったよな。普通の金持ちの道楽って感じじゃなかったよ。武器庫みたいなのまであったし。
戦闘員の数も多かったな。テロリストか。いや、それにしては統率が取れすぎているし、隠蔽する速度が異常か。
ただのテロリストが情報を操作できるとは思えない。どっかの政治家かなんかだろう。だとしても少なくともブレーンは一人じゃないな。政治家って連中はうまい具合に俺に騙されるようなやつばっかりなんだ。
何にせよ、彼女の力を使ってよからぬことをしようと企んでいるのは間違いなさそうですね。
連中の正体は依然不明か。せめて目的だけでも分かればいいが。
During our conversation, the television show had been playing ended and switched to the news. When the main headline was read, all of us gasped.
ローマで起きた殺人事件の重要参考人である天峰氏の誘拐事件についての続報です。集計中に誘拐したのは彼女と共に逃走中だった指名手配犯6名の犯行とフランス警察による発表がありました。
Oh, they're blaming the crew, huh?
防犯カメラの解析から同6名はバーゼルでの爆破事件やトゥーンでの強盗事件への関与の疑いも強く、また他にも不正引き出しの容疑が。
ちょっと強盗は違くね？
というか、なんかますます情報がねじ曲がってますね。爆破事件も不正引き出しも関係ないですし。
やれやれ、罪状が次々上乗せになるとはな。そんなフルコースは頼んじゃいないんだが、権力を持った殺人犯ほど厄介なものはないな。
どうやら本気で敵に回してはならない連中のようだな。彼らにかかれば赤子でさえ極悪犯罪人になりそうだ。
実際にこいつが殺人犯にされているしな。
本人は虫一匹殺せないようなやつだけどな。
てかサリーがやってないハッキングまでサリーがしたことにされてるみたいなんだけど、ひどい。
Ash turned off the TV. I digested the news we'd heard within the quiet that returned. Gibbs said they were enemies most couldn't afford to make. No better statement described them. That man, Chancellor, was an invisible puppeteer. He could take a life and no one would see the strings connected to him. He made manipulation look easy. If his henchmen hadn't caught me, my friends wouldn't have had to come to rescue me. Wouldn't have ended up with more crimes tacked onto their names. Perhaps I was right before in thinking remaining captive was the better path. There was a chance that the organization would leave the others alone if they had me. It was the obvious method, with no end to their escapades in sight, and...
なあなあ、せっかくのリゾートホテルなんだし、パーティーでもしようぜ。
Ram's voice belted out, so cheerful that it was like he'd come from another world. He raised his hands and hopped up and down.
パーティーか。悪くはないな。
え？予想外の人からの賛成来た。
そういや、ルームサービスが頼めたな。ここらでケーキ漬けにうまいもんでも食うか。
サリーも賛成。ピザでしょ、パスタでしょ、あとケーキも食べたい。
Pizza in Germany is, well, I mean, it depends on the town, but it's questionable.
いいですね。寿司頼みましょう、寿司。
寿司はないみたいだわ。
ケーキがある。ケーキケーキ。
Pastries are good, though. Everyone browsed through the room service menu. A few gathered around the phone to order through reception while the others moved furniture to set the table. Do we have money all of a sudden? What, this is going to be expensive. I could only watch them, feeling utterly disconnected. The Hamill I knew would have objected to this kind of behavior.
ああ、安心しろ。このホテルの支払いは先に済んでる。なんならお前の財布には手をつけてないぜ。
Hamill placed the wallet I'd left behind on the table, evidently untouched. As the group's treasurer, he assumed that I was worried about the costs. Or was that just the role he was playing, to pretend he hadn't noticed my internal conflict? Time flew by. The others had rearranged the room for the party in a blink. Within 30 minutes, an extravagant lineup of food was arranged before us.
すっげえ、ごちそうじゃん。
じゃ、パーティーと行くか。
よっしゃ。じゃあみんなで踊ろうぜ。ミュージックスタート。
Rom tapped on his phone and played a catchy tune over the speaker. Unfortunately,
おお。
って誰も踊らねえの？
いや、いきなり音楽流して踊れはないだろ。
スペインは情熱とダンスの国じゃねえの？
oh, we're in Germany though.
そういうならフラメンコの音楽でも流してくれ。
え、逆にそれ踊れるの？
仕事に必要だったからな。
どんな詐欺だよ。
じゃあかの有名な合体シーンのアニソンを。
それでお前が踊れるならな。
じゃあワルツを。
サリー、ジャパンポップがいいな。
うるさいのはやめてくれ。
ちょっと盛り下がること言うなよ。
それよりパーティーとは何をするんだ？
そういえば何やるんでしょうね。
Oh, I guess it would make sense they don't know how to party.
もしかしてみんなパーティーやったことないの？
仕方ねえじゃん。普通やらねえだろ。
かったるいやつなら何度か仕事で潜り込んだけどな。
友人とやるのは僕も初めてです。ああ、でも日本のパーティーはアニメで見ました。キャンプファイヤーと肝試しをするんですよね。
Kama were inside.
あれ？
そういえばケーキにクラッカーがついてきたが。
お、じゃあ乾杯に合わせて鳴らそう。
ってアッシュ君もう食べてる。サリーも食べる。
うわ、すみません。クラッカーを鳴らしてしまいました。
どうしてそうなるんだよ。
いやー、見たことない形だなと思って見ていたら。
もうグダグダじゃん。
Their back and forth was so funny I couldn't hold back a spontaneous chuckle. All at once, everyone spun around to face me. They all shared one expression. Thank goodness, they seemed to say. Even without touching their hands, their feelings came across. I knew very well that Ram proposed the party for my sake. I also knew that all of them had busied themselves with preparations for the same reason. It was always them who made my heart able to work up a smile.
みんな迷惑かけてごめんなさい。それと
Oh, she finally just said it.
助け
当然だよ。
サリーお姉ちゃんがいなきゃやだもん。
ま、あいつらにやられっぱなしも尺だしな。なあ。
僕たちは仲間ですから。困った時はお互い様です。
あの連中は我々の敵でもあるしな。無事でよかった。
じゃあ改めて乾杯。
At long last, we clinked our glasses together in a toast. As I held my champagne glass to my lips, Hamiel smirked at me.
酒はダメじゃなかったのか？
もうここにあるからこれはいいんです。
冗談だよ。むくれるな。
Chuckling, Hamiel tilted his glass towards me in a toasting gesture.
ほら。
We clinked our glasses together again. His sharp tongue was present as usual, but his gaze was soft.
料理も食べているか？
This time, Gib came over with a plate with all kinds of food arranged on it.
ケーキもあるよ。チブさん、サリー、ありがとう。
I sampled what they'd fetched for me, and it was all delicious, of course. Now even the food was making me emotional. A mundane life was far out of reach, maybe forever now. My stomach would still get hungry, though, and eating in the company of others was delightful. I was glad I was still alive. I was glad that I reunited with my comrades. Sentimentality welled up inside me, and I released a happy sigh. It was all the more intense because I'd braced myself for the possibility I might never, ever see them again. While I worked through the food Gib had arranged for me, my eyes met with Camus'. Test of courage? Camus was looking at me, sincerely relieved. Everyone was wearing their emotions on their sleeves. It was no secret they cared for me. I had already found it difficult to separate from the people here. That was why this peaceful moment was more precious than anything else. When Ash was arrested, their consensus had been to give up, but in the end they all came together to rescue him. Even though they'd considered leaving me behind when I collapsed, none of them were missing when I was kidnapped. I was scared of a fugitive life with no end. The thought that I'd drag them down again made me anxious. Even so, if I was going to run, I wanted to run with my friends. And if I couldn't be with them, fleeing was meaningless. Germany, Konstanz, July 26, 2028, 1932, Wednesday, Resort Hotel. So, same place. We all continued to eat, drink, and enjoy ourselves. As our unique party wound down, we naturally split to relax in each in our own ways. It was as if nothing had happened, like being in the eye of a storm. We played at a mundane life. It was a precious thing that I once thought I'd lost forever, but my comrades had reclaimed it for me. I thanked them earlier, before the party started, but I wanted to voice my gratitude properly once more. No, maybe that was just an excuse. The truth was, I wanted to savor this peaceful moment even more with... Oh, well, let's see. Who do we have the most points with? I guess we have the most points with... it's,
大事なことは忘れないようにね。これで OK？
準備は抜かりなくですね。
Yeah, what is it? It's between Rami and Camus that were the most... Seriously, my bar is halfway. Only Rami and Camus would are getting the highest ones. Oh, I think in that case, like the hotel, a resort hotel would provide robes. But yes, it would be rather awkward, everybody in a robe. I mean, like age-wise, it would make sense for me to miss Rami the most. Kamu was a strange one. I didn't realize I'd given him so many points. Gib's my favorite character, though strangely enough, I didn't give Gib a whole lot as far as like positive decisions. Ash, I also like Ash just as much, but again, it didn't seem like I had a lot of opportunity. Hamiel, Hamiel's always going to be kind of on the lower end, unless we actually do something on purpose to bring up his points. Yeah, I mean, to me, I think it makes sense for her to like Rami the most at this point in time, since they're both the same age. It's Rami and Sally, I think, are probably like the ones she'd feel closest with. It can't be Kamu, though. Kamu's just too weird. Sally's always calling me her bestie, I mean, Gib is just like an adult. I mean, he's like the solid rock. Ash is aloof, he's your tsundere character. We'll say Ram. I looked over at Ram, thinking about chatting with him, but when he noticed my attention, he approached me first.
Mika, ちゃんと食べてる?
I mean, in this playthrough, he kind of came through for us a lot more. I'm assuming if I made some different choices, like somebody else would come through us for us. Ram skipped over and plopped down next to me. He had stacked up a giant pile of food on his plate and was eagerly helping himself. I couldn't stifle a chuckle at his face.
もちろん美味しいね。
I do really like Sally. I mean, but like I said, we just didn't have the right choices for Sally.
なあ、このポテトとかすげえうまくてさ。
Ram excitedly told me which dishes he liked the best. We focused on indulging in the food for a while. Once he'd eaten his fill, Ram bounced to his feet.
なあ、ちょっと外の空気吸いに行かない？
でもいいのかな？
いいって。せっかくの観光地だってのに楽しまなきゃ損だろ？
Unfortunately, I think he's like the least attractive character. Mainly because he looks like a little kid, but, we ended up being the most friendly.
なんかあったら僕が一番に気づくし。だから行こうよ。
So it's probably best that we get this ending out of the way. This was probably a show of consideration from Ram. He knew that I'd sulk in low spirits and overthink if I were left alone. His concern came through as he flashed a toothy smile at me, and seeing that, I gave him a reserved nod. I think we had a bunch of points when we picked him for downtown and we were playing tag, right? Germany, Constance, July 26, 2028, 2001, Wednesday, Lake Constance. We went to the bank of the lake near the hotel. The two of us walked side by side along the water's edge. The lakeside breeze was refreshing, and for the first time in a while, I took a deep breath and simply enjoyed the view.
気持ちいいね。
よかった。
And obviously, I have a thing for cats, so, he is basically a cat. As we strolled and admired the lake, Rom walked in circles around me, almost like a playful kitten. Yeah, see. Maybe he was struggling to match my shorter strides, because he restlessly went ahead and came around from my back until he was next to me again. However, he never left my side. He kept about a step's distance from me as he meandered.
何笑ってんの？
I didn't realize a smile had wormed itself onto my face as I watched him. He leaned into me, curious.
なんだか猫みたいだなって思って。
Of course, the guy named Meowmurai is going to pick the cat-like person.
猫？どこが？
歩き方かな。
え？
Rom looked shocked. Then he paused when he noticed his pacing back and forth and smiled shyly, a little embarrassed.
本当だ。誰かと歩調を合わせて歩くのなんてやってこなかったからさ。もう少しゆっくり。
To practice walking by my side, Rom stepped up next to me and tried to mimic my manner of walking. His attempt was so exaggerated and comical that I couldn't help but grin again. When he looked up from our feet and saw me, Rom's face lit up too.
やっぱミカは笑顔が一番だよ。
When he complimented me, I found myself grinning even more broadly. We continued chatting as we walked. Rom began fanning himself to cool off.
にしても水辺なのに結構暑いな。喉乾かない？
Rom ran over to a nearby stall and bought 2 juices before coming back.
ってことで飲もうぜ。はい。
ありがとう。
I accepted the juice and took a sip. The chilly taste of fruit swept the heat away.
美味しいね。
うん、珍しい味だけど。
Sniffing the juice curiously, Rom continued to sip his drink. In the summer heat, I noticed for the first time that Rom's clothes covered him completely. Only his face and fingers saw the sun.
そういえばラミー君、その格好暑くないの？
Compared to my sleeveless dress, Rom's body heat didn't have anywhere to go. He must have been sweltering. I asked because I was worried, but he replied with a non-committal smile.
別に。動きやすいからこれでいいんだ。
With one hand, Rom held down the sleeve of his other arm. It might have been a subconscious reaction. It was as if he were afraid he'd been forced to show his skin. Maybe I'd brought up a sore spot for him. Hurriedly, I changed the topic.
それより、湖で泳いでる人、たくさんいるね。
I know, fruit juice does sound good. All I have is like Coke Zero here. I used to have some tea, but I'm out of tea.
夏だもんな。
Oh, and coffee. I always have coffee.
気持ちよさそう。ラミー君は泳がなくていいの？
僕はいいよ。
Ramen grimaced just a tiny bit. He didn't look at all interested in the idea, even a little adverse to it. I might have brought up another bad topic. Having finished his juice, Rom casually tossed his cup into a trash can. I watched from his side. He was cheery as ever on the outside, bright enough to conceal that ambiguous face he'd made earlier. But I didn't know what topic was innocuous enough to talk about and struggled to say anything more. Soon Rom seemed to have pulled himself together.
それよりミカがいたとこについて教えてよ。日本ってあんまスリとかいないんだっけ？
Whether he sensed my inner turmoil or because he was really just curious, Rom got the ball rolling again. Feeling relieved, I nodded.
そうかな。カフェの席に荷物を置いたまま席を離れる人も多いし。
マジ？そんな安全な国なの？
Rom's jaw dropped dramatically as if he were listening to a fairy tale before he chuckled. After that, Rom hounded me for stories about Japan. I told him about the area I was raised in and stories from my high school days.
わざわざ運動を勉強したりするんだ。すげえな、高校って。 もしかして送り迎えとかもあったの？
学校には電車で通ってたかな。通勤と通学のラッシュが重なるとすごい人で。
Though I was the one talking, my old life already felt like a tale from a faraway land that I was just reciting. Every day back then had been a tedious but peaceful, so much that I'd never imagined I'd lose it one day. Ram listened to my memoirs of Japan with longing, my memories of Japan with longing in his eyes, expressing incredulity every now and then.
いつかミカと一緒に学校に行ったりとかできんのかな？
He muttered that softly. Then his eyes blinked with surprise at his own words.
あれ？
There was a lost and bewildered look on his face. He tilted his head.
なんでこんなことを思ったんだろう。今まで学校に行きたいとか思ったことないのに。
I'd love to go to school with you. Do you want to study? It's because you've changed.
とりあえず記録しておけ。
これで問題ありませんか？
This one's kind of a weird one. Like, I don't think anybody really loves it when somebody's tells them they've changed. It's not really like a compliment. You know what I mean? In a way, it sort of feels like it seems like kind of a rude thing to say. It's, hey, you know, you've really changed since we met. It's like, really? While it's a neutral thing to say, it's also kind of a-hole thing to say. I'm gonna be honest. Do you want to study? Is probably not what I would pick. So let's go. I'd love to go to school with you.
でも、私はラミー君と一緒に学校行ってみたいな。楽しそうだし。
僕じゃ勉強追いつかないよ。あんま覚えるの得意じゃないし。
確かに日本の学校は覚えることが重要だけど、こっちの学校は考えることの方が重要だから、ラミー君に向いてると思うよ。
へえ、国によって学校も違うんだ。
私も来た時にはびっくりしたけど、勉強の仕方も教え方も違うと思う。それに勉強以外にもスポーツをしたり、みんなでランチを食べたり、クラブ活動をしたり、楽しいことがいっぱいあるよ。
そしたら友達ももっとできるかな？
もちろんだよ。ラミー君ならすぐに人気者になれるよ。
そっか。そんな日が来たらいいよな。
It's kind of sad having this conversation. It's like that piece of his life that he never got to have and probably never will. Speaking as if he were sure that it was impossible, Ram grinned. It felt like we were worlds apart. It was as if the distance between us suddenly widened to a dark, yawning abyss. I instinctively reached out to him. But my hand only grasped air. Ram evaded me nimbly, and I belatedly recalled that he didn't like to be touched. Regret pinched Ram's eyebrows. He had dodged on instinct. With an awkward look on his face, Ram stared down at my hand.
ごめんね、ラミー君。私。
な、学校に行くのは無理でもさ、またここに遊びに来ようよ。
As if he were trying to gloss over that awkward exchange, Ram stepped up and looked straight at me. His green eyes held mine. The eye contact felt mature for him, but gentle. After a moment, I nodded.
またここに来たいね。
Ram blinked once before grinning happily at my reply.
じゃあ約束。
He lifted his pinky finger and held it out to me. Okay, well then now these guys are acting like actual children. I mean, if these are like college-aged kids, then this is just not a thing. But I noticed that with Japanese writing is that it tends to make characters younger than they are. So if they're college students, then they act like they're high school students, and if they're high school students, they act like they're middle school students, and if they're middle school students, they act like they're elementary school students. It's really weird. It's definitely a strange cultural thing where, you know, nobody acts their age. And if you're an old man, it's almost guaranteed you're some sort of weird pervert, which is, you know, that's just true life. You know.
日本じゃこうするんだろ？約束するときにさ。全部終わったらまたここに遊びに来ようよ。今度は人目も気にしないで。
After everything is done and over with, those words were poignantly foreboding. A day like that would never come. He was a criminal, and I was being chased by a mysterious and nigh omnipotent organization. Despite knowing that it was an impossible promise, I nodded. I wanted to exchange a bright promise of the future with Rom, and only Rom.
ミカと約束したら、きっと僕頑張れるからさ。だから僕と約束してくれない？
うん。約束。
I locked my pinky with his. His shoulder jolted up when we touched. I still vividly remembered how he'd shaken off my hand, how he always stayed just out of reach. Rom didn't like physical contact, but he'd offered his pinky and was enduring it for me. My heart ached, honored that he did, and sorry that he was forcing himself.
それでなんて言うんだっけ？
指切り剣満、嘘ついたら針千本のます。指切ったかな。
そんな怖い歌ついてんの
？Yeah, I mean, if he hates touch, it just means that his life was full of abuse, because that's, I mean, quite frankly, that's usually the case. I mean, I learned that growing up, and also when I used to be a counselor, like a camp counselor. It was like, you know, the kids who were the most hurt, who didn't like the hugs or the high fives or anything. I mean, they were just, you know, quite frankly, they were from very broken homes. You know, that is the reality. You know, I mean, sometimes there are kids that just don't like being touched. Of course, that is a thing as well, but that's a pretty low percentage, at least as far as my personal experience is concerned. Rom feigned horror as he wagged his linked pinky.
指切り弦満、嘘ついたら針千本のます。
I don't mean to get so serious, but it is life, you know, whether we like it or not.
指切った。やった。
He released my pinky and shot his arms up in celebration, as if there were nothing to be afraid of anymore.
ありがとう、ラミー君。
僕こそありがとう。
Rom cranked his neck, looking at the rapidly reddening sky with a grin. The evening breeze caressed us softly.
僕さ、ミカに会えてよかったって思ってるんだ。
本当？
うん。多分会わなきゃずっと知らなかった。誰かと一緒にいる心地よさなんて。ずっと一人で生きてきたんだ。誰かといても楽しいって思えることもなかった。でもミカだけは違った。どうしてだろうね。
ラミー君。
だからもう危ないことしないで。僕のためにさ。
Rom stared at me with a serious face. This oath he asked of me was much more significant than a pinky promise.
足手まといなんかじゃない。僕が危ない目にあったとしても、それは僕の命運だったって思ってる。だからもう責任を感じちゃダメだ。逃げる時も捕まる時も一緒だよ。
Why was he willing to say this to me? Someone who'd done nothing but take up space.
どうして？私は何もラミー君にできてないのに。
My question spilled out before I could stop it. His eyes widened and he gave me a troubled smile.
そんなこともわかんないの？
Then Rom began running as if dodging the question. The water he kicked up sparkled under the last rays of daylight.
ほら、おいでよ。
ラミー君、待って。
遅い遅い。
Laughing, Rom kept running. It was like a silent message telling me not to think about things for now. The waves along the lake shore gently murmured. The two of us had fun by the water until all the light had gone beneath the horizon. Germany, Constance, July 26, 2028, 2203, Wednesday, Resort Hotel. After that, I returned to the hotel, had a shower, made my way to the bedroom, and sat down on the bed. Sally had gone off to shower right after me. All alone, I absently thought back on the conversations I had today. What were we going to do from now on? That was a question no one had touched. Everyone was careful and considerate so that they wouldn't shatter the tiny, fragile day of peace we had gently put together. Which was why I hadn't broached the subject either. Deciding that we could have a good discussion tomorrow, I tucked myself into bed. That was when my phone rang like an ominous omen. Oh, who is it this time?
やあ、ジョーちゃん、元気だったかい？
When I accepted the call, the voice that flowed out belonged to the man I'd met again in Altdorf.
カルロスさんですか？
Oh my god, it's Carlos.
ああ、そうだとも。その様子だと無事に逃げてこられたみたいだな。
I guess I should have known he wasn't going to just go away in the story. He was definitely going to make his return. Escape. That word implied he knew my situation. My breathing hitched.
どういうことですか？
おや、聞いてないのか？これでもジャーナリストの端くれだからね。実はジョーちゃんの居場所を探す手伝いをしたんだよ。ほら、名刺を渡しただろう。その連絡先に急に君のお仲間からの連絡が来てね。この俺を頼るなんてよほど切羽詰まってたらしい。
I never knew.
それにしても随分大変なことになってるじゃないか。まあ君らには頑張ってもらいたいからね。俺もできる限りは手を貸すつもりだ。何か困ったことがあったらぜひ頼ってくれよ。安くしとくぜ。
Carlos didn't explicitly bring up why he'd contacted me before he ended the call. But from the tone of his voice, he definitely wasn't helping solely out of generosity. Not to mention that it was strange that he'd help us in the first place, since we obliterated the evidence he had and refused an honest interview. It must be a lie. After all, we were still considered a group of wanted criminals. What did he want? Why had he called me? Unease crept on me like a rising tide. When I looked outside the window, the moon was falling onto the lake. Though the scenery should have been enchanting, it somehow seemed sinister to me.
ミカ、私の大切な宝物。どうして泣いているの？だって怖いんだもん。手に触ると真っ黒なのが見えるから。そう。でも大丈夫よ。いつかきっとあなたにも現れるわ。真っ黒じゃない優しい色をした心を持ってあなたに触れてくれる人が。それってママみたいな綺麗な色の人？あなたみたいな優しい心を持った人よ。
Chapter 10, The Rescue. Okay, we are approaching the hour, so why don't we stop it here? This is meowmurai. You've been watching Despera Drops, running on Nintendo Switch 2. Boy, yeah, this is a surprisingly very
Despera
sweet game
Drops.
too. Like I again, I really didn't know what to expect. I thought this was going to be closer to All World Has Ended, which was a bit more like wacky and goofy and more like an anime comedy. But here, this is like I don't know, this is like an anime drama. So I'm glad it's so different. You know, I guess it just proves that the talent of Reddit's developers, you know, they can do a little bit of everything. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.